Hello guys and welcome back to a new video, and today we are going to discuss about Hu Tao and the team and the artifact. So because the current panel is Hu Tao, I'm going to talk about more to Hu Tao, and because Hu Tao is because some people actually think it's interesting to play Hu Tao. And let's go to straight to what weapon you should use. So mostly weapon Dragon Spin if you don't have, you actually can use any crit weapon. Like even white tassel is actually fine. You actually, but the best in slot I do think is stuff of Homer or Sino weapon. If but I don't have. But you can absolutely should use Sino weapon. You can use PGWS if you want to. It's fine. And now let's go to artifact. So about the artifact is mainly just use Marechusset Hunter, Crimson Wish of Flame, or two piece EM, like 2 EM. Like you can use like Paradise Lost or Gilded Dreams. Oh yeah, also Gilded Dreams. And I'm going to say this. I'm never going to recommend people use Shimenawa. You can use it, but it's not even for me not that great. At that point, just use like if you don't have Crimson Wish of Flame, do not farm it. You don't really need it, but it's actually okay if you want to. But for me, I don't think you really need this. And in some certain scenario, which later I'm going to talk, you probably want this. This I'm not going to talk more about it. And there you go. That's unit. And I think for me the best flexible one is Gilded Dreams for Peace Gilded Dreams or just pretty much Marechusset Hunter. But make sure you play with Furina or some teams like using Bennett, which I'm going to talk about now. And the first team is very old team, which is Double Hydro. It's actually popularized very back then, like before even there is Yelan. So you know how old is this. And basically back then you play with literally Zhongli, Xingqiu, Hutao. These three won't be changed. But the last one you can also play with Kill Traveler or just Albedo. And but now you're probably going to ask, I I think you're probably going to think Sionan is the best thing. No, Sionan is actually not the best one, but Navia and actually Albedo is actually the best one now. If you have the Sionan weapon, Albedo is actually very strong because the damage and the EM is still unreplaceable from me if you compare with Sionan. And remember with Sionan is the damage is very comparable, like the damage buff is very comparable to Albedo damage. Yeah. So anyways, and if you ask me, is this team good? It's not that great. It's very replaceable, and because I actually always use how to test damage is how good the team is I usually call us two test subject, which is new flat alone, or like when I mean new flat alone, I mean new flat with 3 stack or sometimes even 2 stack. I actually don't care. So new flat himself or basically hyperplum. And for me, I do think this team is very concerning because in hyperplum it's very far off, and I rather play new flat. Yeah. So for me, I generally do not play this. So let's go just to the next one, which is Double Hydro. Oh yeah, before I say generally do not play this, is you absolutely can play that and it's still fine, but you probably going to a little bit more struggle to clear. And now the second one is Double Hydro, and you actually use Yelan or use Furina. And remember, if you use Furina, Marechusset Hunter. If there's no Bennett or to be honest, in Furina, usually if you don't use Furina, just don't use Marechusset Hunter. Just use Crimson Crimson, or just 2 piece. I recommend 2 piece with Marechusset Hunter EM or EM. And this team is popularized when Yelan released, of course, because back then there's no good Hydro with Hu Tao. There's no actually very good. So because now that you can play double hydro, and even now you absolutely can 100% have to play with, for me, with Furina, or you absolutely play with these heavy teams, which is literally all of 5-star with Yeon and Furina. It's very strong, and Hutao will hit very high damage, and not gonna lie, it's very good. But I'm going to be honest, if you ask me how good is this, I still generally place Hyper Bloom. This team is pretty much the damage is just like a Hyper Bloom or a little bit higher. Yeah, I'm just going to say that. So generally, this is already okay or good, but there's still a lot of things that is even better than this very like not cheap team. So I don't think you should play this, and because you also cost Furina, cost Yelan, cost Zhongli, is very expensive. And also, even though it's expensive, it's not that great, like crazy either. So just like I generally don't play this. And let's go to the next team, which is now very the mainstream and now currently the meta to play Hutao, which is Double Pyro, Double Hydro with Bennett. And this team is now very good because Marechusset Hunter, Furina, and basically the stereotype of people saying if your Hutao is not below 50% is pretty shit, and that is actually a very false way to say, because people always generally think that 33% is very bad. I do admit I'm bad at math, but really? You think 33% is that big? It's very concerning, to be honest. And I don't think that you pretty much like want to always in low health, and it's very counterintuitive. And the good part about playing with Furina and Xingqiu too is actually the damage is very strong. And sometimes people actually play with also Yelan, but I actually generally just play with Xingqiu because generally even though Hutao damage it will be less, your Furina will cover it, and you also will absolutely not going to die either, and resist any interruption. And because Xingqiu have this skill which absolutely resist any damage, I think you can just read it. You 100% going to have Xingqiu in any way or another. If you pull Hu Tao, like this banner actually have Xingqiu, just read it. And anyways, and I do think this is the mainstream, and this team is actually okay, at not okay but good for me. It's actually above for me in single target or two target. I think this name is actually above the Hutao. I mean above Hutao, above Hyper Bloom damage, and I do recommend people actually also use this. It's actually fine, but if you actually see, this is actually very expensive team too. Using Bennett, Furina, Xingqiu, all of them are very high tier team. If you check in my tier list, you're probably going to see Bennett and Furina is actually very high in the tier list, right? For Xingqiu is not yet there, but it's probably there too. You're probably going to see, is there other way to actually lessen the use of Furina or Bennett or either Xingqiu? Yes, there is, and this is for me, the other team that I don't think is not even in mainstream, but I do recommend people actually play this. And is Hutao, Jeffus, Fischl, Xingqiu. It's literally just Hutao Chevy. And I do keep in mind that for Electro, you absolutely can use Pyro, but generally just use Fischl because the Fischl damage is better. And now let me give some insight about playing with Chevy. So playing with Chevy, instead you need like the problem with Bennett and Furina, you just wave Chevy and Fischl, which is actually more okay. Like the fact that you can use Bennett Furina in other team is very great things, and the only problem is that you still need Xingqiu, which is, well, to be honest, I don't think I don't think it's that bad because in the end you play with Hutao, and the other team is still using very a lot of good option. Like you probably just can solo with new flat, it's fine. And with Hutao in this team, the damage is actually a little bit better. And the only downside with this is you missing out Furina damage if you play with Furina, which I absolutely going to play. Remind you, if you want to play mainstream, this is the build meta for now. And I do think this team is have the same performance or a little bit better than this team, the mainstream one. Just only because like if you have TV C6, this is absolutely like far better than like Bennett C6 and like this Bennett team, because not only you get a lot of Pyro damage bonus from Chefus, your Fischl also getting a lot of buff too, which you're going to see like Fischl dealing 40k, which is absolutely crazy. And to like I actually ever played this back then, but I actually generally, for me, if you really that desperate to actually have a team, this is actually very good team. And because it's also used for star, you probably already have the characters. If you don't have, well, to be honest, why why care about playing Hu Tao in the first place? So I do generally like for you guys, if you actually want to play Hutao, this is actually a good team to play. And for me, much better to play this than this. And not only you don't need to play Furina, you actually have the same damage, actually the same output. Just only like a much harder rotation. And now let's go to where an orthodox team. So I actually played this yesterday, and is Hu Tao Burgeon. And I don't think a lot of people actually talk this, or either me, I actually don't notice people actually play this or not, but there's not much people actually talk about this team, but this team is actually very strong. And let me remind you, this team, Hu Tao, needs Paradise Lost. If you don't have, you can use Gilded, is actually fine, but I actually going to recommend to you guys to absolutely, where is Paradise Lost? Just use Paradise Lost 100%. Like if you don't use Paradise Lost, you might fuck a little bit. Yeah, basically like that. And like 4 piece Paradise Lost, and there's like some build you can actually use crit rate. Yesterday I used crit rate because I have a very good chocolate, and because I actually have goblet and the goblet and Sons of Aeon EM. I actually have F1. Okay, I hate Paradise Lost. Okay, I have this one, so you can actually think about, oh wait, what? Yeah, you actually can use it. I think I use like plus something. And okay, I actually use like plus something and it's still good. So what's the good part of about playing Hu Tao version is her heal is now not sucks. But the problem with this is, you see, it's still expensive. Like you use Nahida Xingqiu Bennett. You just use Nahida with the Nahida instead Furina. And this can be a little bit problem for some people actually playing this like still new in this game, and I don't think people actually have C6 Bennett lying around. If you actually have, you can absolutely try this. And except if you don't want C6 to C6 your Bennett, I will make another video to actually convince. And this team is actually very strong because you actually just do hyper bloom damage with a single target of Hutao, and well, the total of your hyper bloom will be a little bit less because sometimes you're probably going to neither will going to fuck your rotation a little, your vaping rotation a little bit, and the production of bloom a little bit, because the way of burning concept exists, but it's still very strong, and I do recommend that you have to use Xingqiu. And Bennett, just try to use sapwood if you have. You don't need to. You don't need to actually, but if you have sapwood, that's very good. And use just this artifact. Yeah, where is this? Yeah, just use instructor. That is very strong base. And the reason why this team works is because Hutao is pretty unique, because even though Hu Tao, and you also use second pain, yeah, you have to use second pain. Even though Hu Tao scale with crit rate and crit damage, she still scale with EM. So that is one way of good way of saying Hu Tao build. And because you still vaping, your damage is still very high. Like sometimes you're going to deal, if I'm not remember, yesterday I still, if I crit, remember if I crit, I deal like 60k or 70k, which is very strong. And because I also burgeoning, that is very good for just a literally non-centralized crit build. And I do think I have very good piece, I do think, on Paradise Lost. But I think that is a way that you actually can play this team. And generally, this team is very strong. And not just good, but I do think it's strong. Because it's also like past the level of Hyper Bloom damage. But in some certain team, like in some certain scenario, this is very valid way to actually play with Hutao. And I do think this is the 5 thing you actually can play with Hutao, like primarily 5 team. And I'm going to put this on description, so you probably don't need to actually like to watch again the video if you want to. But I do think this is the 5 team that you should play with Hutao. And I hope you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and I will make more video about the tutorials of and other teams that you can use. See you in the next video, like and subscribe, and see ya!